Here in Wales, spring is definitely in the air, and in this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about projects for the change in seasons and the different things that we might like to do in our fibre art studio that aren't necessarily knitting. If you're new here, my name is Becca, and I'm a hand spinner, knitter, and newbie weaver, and you're very welcome to my local woodland in West Wales. If you're an old friend, welcome back. But before we go back to the studio, I'm going to just turn the camera around and show you where we are today.
Today we're walking in the woods by the River Gwaun, and it's very wet underfoot. It really has been raining an awful lot, and I'm saying that as someone that lives in Wales, and we are quite well known for our rain, and I'm squelching through the mud. But you can see there are the signs of spring. The heavy rain has meant that there's a lot of water coming off the Brasilis, which is draining directly into the River Gwaun, and it is in flood. I saw a female Gorsander really struggling against the tide as it was rushing down, and you can see how close to the top of the bank it is. Fingers crossed we're not going to get any flooding. We're very close to the end of February, which is the perfect time to spot the scarlet elf cap.
So we're back in what I laughingly call my fibre art studio, which, everybody else calls an alcove. And I've been thinking about how the season is changing, and it really does feel like we've sort of got over that cusp of winter and we're just starting to see the green shoots of spring. And I've been thinking about how that affects our creative practice as fibre artists. And I've got 7 ideas for you to try to celebrate the change in the season. So, my first idea for you is to change the fibres that you're working with. In the Northern Hemisphere, which obviously I'm in, and we are going into warmer weather, fingers crossed, hopefully. It feels like it hasn't stopped raining for about 3 months here, but it is getting warmer, definitely. So maybe we don't want to work with wool. Maybe we want to try some cotton or some linen or another one of the plant fibres. So that could be something that we start to think about, that we want to incorporate, because we want to maybe make something for the summer and we want to make it out of cotton. So that could be something that we start exploring, just to kind of change it up a little bit. So if you're in the southern hemisphere, it's opposite. You're probably thinking about sort of wanting to work with cozy, nice, scrumptious fibres that are going to keep you warm. So that obviously, apply this to wherever you are in the world. My next idea for you could be thinking about working with whole fleece. So sort of we're in lambing season at the moment for a lot of people. They lamb a little bit later here, particularly on the mountains, but lambing season is beginning. And after lambing season, obviously, they'll start shearing. And it's really great if you're going to work with raw fleece, actually work with this year's cut. Because what happens is, as the fleece gets a bit older, so the lanolin gets a little bit harder and is a little more difficult to work with. I mean, it's not impossible, and obviously, you can do that, and there are ways of getting around that problem. But it is always best, if you can, to work with this year's clip. And sort of April time, you're going to start seeing the 2024 shearing. And so that might be a fun thing to do if you've never done it before. I never do it in the winter because it just is so difficult to dry things here. If you had a big drying space, or you don't have as much rain as maybe we do here, then you can try it all year round. But for me, it's something that's definitely a summer job, or a spring and summer job, rather than an autumn winter job. So my next one is start planning and sowing your dye garden. If you're somebody that enjoys natural dyeing, then it's the perfect time of year to start planning the plants that you're going to grow for the coming season. So, again, because of the weather, it's quite nice to be able to do natural dyeing outside and to harvest fresh flowers or fresh leaves or fresh stalks or roots or whatever it is that you can work with when the weather's a bit better. And so this is the time of the year when we're starting to think about planting seeds, getting the ground ready to put those plants in. So if you are a natural dyer, maybe this is the year you're going to grow your dye garden. Festivals. So definitely time to think about planning those trips to festivals, yarn festivals, wool festivals. Wonder Wool is coming up for me in West Wales. Fingers crossed I'll get there. I haven't for a few years, but I'm really hoping that I'm going to get to this one. And so there are lots of things coming up, and good time to start putting them in the diary, booking time off from work, and really getting excited about going to a yarn festival. Plan a field trip. So around me, I've got lots of woolen mills, and there's also the Woolen Museum, which is free to go in because it is a museum of Wales, which means that anybody can go in there for free. And it's a good fun field trip to kind of get you fully immersed in what's going on in the world of wool. Book a retreat or a workshop. Lots of workshops and retreats run in that period between sort of Christmas and the summer holidays, so sort of spring, early summer. Lots of workshops going on, and they are all over the country. So but now is a really good time to start thinking about them and planning for them, particularly again if you need to book time off from work. So number 7, and oh my goodness, it is my favourite. Create a workspace outside. I feel like I've done nothing but kind of be inside for months and months and months, and actually being able to work outside is my favourite thing to do. So I have a little space that I've created on my patio, and when the weather's really good, I get myself set up with my wheel and my supplies, and I just sit outside enjoying the sunshine and spinning. Those are my ideas for your seasonal fibre craft as spring is fast approaching. So I have a bonus idea for you: spring cleaning. And this week I really have tried to get the stash in order, and also actually got the fabric stash in order, because there's been a big pile of fabric just kind of in a bag, and I've actually put it away for the first time in quite a long time. And so I've been organising my craft supplies, and it really made me think that I want to clear the decks and get some new things going on, some new colours. So this week I've been working on trying to get a nice big bulky amount of fibre cleared out and ready to spin. At the beginning of the year, I had some money from selling some books on Ziffit, so I went on to World of Books and bought a few vintage, well, retro pattern books. And I've been desperate to try something from this one, Big Knitting, but I've been struggling a little bit because I have an Ashford Traditional and I have the original flyer from 1980s Ashford Traditional, and that does not really allow you to make really big wool. You can make quite chunky yarn, but it really is kind of right at the end of its limits if I'm trying to make really big wool, which is why I've been on a bit of a spending ban for sort of fibre and art supplies so that I can buy a new flyer. But I thought, you know what, I'm sure I can make something that's big enough and chunky enough. Chunkily? What's chunkily? Chunky enough so that I can actually do one of the patterns in here. So there is this little gilet, and there you go. I probably won't make it quite that long. I'm probably going to sort of have it coming up my waist, but it's probably going to need a good few 100 grams of yarn. Sorry, I don't work in yards, I always work in weight. I know a lot of people work in yards, but for me, I probably need about 600 grams. And so I thought I would dive into the stash and see what I could come up with. So here's what I've pulled from the stash. And as you can see, it's greys and greeny greys. And then there's just a few little bits of sort of browns and chestnuts. And a little bit of, you'd call that humbug, wouldn't you? A bit of humbug silk. And I'm going to put those on the blending board and see what we come up with. I was blending this in thin layers of each colour. I am effectively going to get optical blending because so many of the colours are very similar, but I think every so often there will be something a little bit different that hopefully will just pop out from the grey and be just a little bit more interesting than if it was all one colour. When I've filled up the tines, I'm going to lift this off as a bat and then pre-draft it a little bit for easy spinning. This would obviously be a much quicker process on a drum carder, but a long time ago I decided that I really didn't have room for it, so I just play around on my little blending board and have lots of fun. I can get about 25 grams on here quite comfortably without putting too much strain on the tines. I'm making a 2-ply yarn, one single of the grey mixture and one single is going to be just a undyed comb top that I've split into 3 and I'll spin like that. And I'm going thick and thin. I'm trying to get a really bulky yarn, but as you're going to see in a minute, plying this on my flyer was a bit of a challenge. So I think it is time I got that jumbo flyer. Ashford also make what they call their country spinner, which is ideal for making the big fat yarns. And the lady who taught me how to do fibre prep used to have one, and she used it for her less than perfect fibres for using on the peg loom, and she really found it to be a great fun wheel to have in her collection. So here is I've just started to knit up a tension square or a swatch or sample, or whatever it is that we call these. I call them tension squares, but I don't know whether that's really what they're called. Anyway, so I'm just doing the sampling, and so I'll be able to do a bit of maths and actually work out the pattern, because as I said, I think I'm going to make it a little bit shorter. And then down here I have a lovely basket ready for me to spin up the next bit. And I really find that if I'm trying to get a lighter effect, so not such a dark effect, and I'm trying to get something that's not a winter item of clothing, it's more a sort of spring into summer, although it's made with wool, because it's not going to have the sleeves, it's not going to be as hot. But I find if I just have that second ply in white or a very pale colour, then it just lightens the whole design. Because obviously I'm working with greys, and a lot of those were naturally dyed using iron as a mordant, which really saddens colours, makes them quite dull. So just by using that naturally coloured, or the natural fleece colour, I just find it it lightens it a little bit. So that is what I'm working on, and once I've kind of done the maths and spun all that up, I will be knitting it, and I will share obviously the progress. So the other thing I was working on last week was working with the Lichen dye. I'm doing this process outside because household ammonia smells quite bad, and I really don't want to stink my house up. So in here I have 15 grams of lichen, which I think is crottle, but it might not be. Yeah, it might not be. And probably if this doesn't work, it wasn't. That is just water from the water butt, from the rain butt. So that's 500 millilitres. And then I need 250 millilitres of household ammonia that I'm going to measure out, keeping a good distance away because I really don't want to to be knocked out by this stuff. I'm going to add it to the water. Oh God, that stinks. Oh, that really, really smells bad. And then add that solution to my lichen, put the lid on, and then that's going to sit in the dark for about a week, and we'll see what happens. And I have to tell you, that is not a good smell. That is really not a good smell. And I spoke to a few people online that I know that have done it, and they kind of said, yeah, your yarn does carry on smelling. And I was like, what, as bad as that? They said not, but I don't know. I mean, it has got a great colour. I don't think it's going to be the purple one. I think I've got the wrong variety for that. I'm pretty sure I've got my ID wrong. I think that it's still going to produce a dye, but I don't think I want my yarn to smell like the contents of this. So I think I'm going to have a little go with just like sort of 25 grams or something and see if it works. And then I'm going to do a hot water dye, which apparently does not smell quite as much. So that's the update on that. In theory, you can leave that for about 3 weeks. I don't think I will leave it for 3 weeks because I've already got a really good colour there. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to get a colour change. So that is the update for the lichen dyes. Now, I have also broken my spending ban. So I said earlier in the video how I was on this spending ban because I wanted to buy a new flyer, and yeah, that didn't actually last the week. That lasted about 2 weeks, I think. And I have got some new fibre. It's just arrived, but I am going to make a separate unboxing video for that. And it might be, actually, I think it might well be a bonus video this week. So maybe out Sunday, maybe out Monday. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to do that a little bit later on today. So that is me done. Thank you so much for watching. If you have got any ideas about what we could do as fibre artists to celebrate spring and the change of the season, or if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, celebrate the change of the season in autumn going into winter, then drop a comment below. And until then, happy creating, my friend, and I will see you soon.